Imagine watching a popular TV dating show, laughing along with the audience as a charming bachelor flirts his way into the heart of a beautiful bachelorette. The crowd cheers, the lights flash, and the bachelor grins, a picture of confidence and charisma. But what if behind that winning smile lies a chilling secret? What if the man you've just rooted for is, in reality, a cunning serial killer? Welcome to the unsettling true story of Rodney Alcala, a man who hid his sinister nature in plain sight. Join us as we delve deep into the harrowing tales of Morgan, Tali, and Robin. 3 lives forever altered by a predator masquerading as the boy next door. The bright studio lights illuminated the stage of The Dating Game, a beloved TV show that had become a staple of American entertainment. The audience buzzed with excitement as the host introduced the night's eligible bachelors. Laughter and applause filled the air, creating an atmosphere of innocent fun. "Let's meet Bachelor number 1, the host exclaimed. He's a successful photographer whose father found him in the darkroom at the age of 13, fully developed. The crowd roared with laughter at the cheeky joke. Behind the partition sat Rodney Alcala, Bachelor number 1. Tall, handsome, and exuding confidence, he flashed a winning smile. Across from him, Bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw prepared her questions, unaware that the man she might choose for a dream date was hiding a dark, deadly secret. As the game unfolded, Rodney's charm was undeniable. He flirted effortlessly, his witty answers drawing giggles from Cheryl and cheers from the audience. But beneath the surface of this playful exchange lurked a predator, a man whose appearance on national television would later shock the world. "Okay, Bachelor number 1, Cheryl began with a mischievous grin. "What's your best time?" Rodney leaned forward, his voice smooth as silk. "The best time," he replied, pausing for effect, "is at night. Nighttime is when it really gets good." The audience chuckled, and Cheryl blushed slightly, caught up in the flirtatious banter. Question after question, Rodney's charisma seemed to outshine the other contestants. "Bachelor number 1, Cheryl continued. "I'm serving you for dinner. What are you called and what do you look like?" He flashed a sly smile. "I'm called the Banana, and I look really good." Laughter erupted, and even the host seemed entertained by his antics. By the end of the show, Cheryl had made her choice. "Well," she giggled, "I like bananas, so I'll take 1. The crowd cheered as Rodney stood up, a triumphant look on his face. He walked over to meet Cheryl, who was beaming with excitement. Yet, as they exchanged pleasantries, Cheryl felt a subtle unease, an intuition that something wasn't quite right. Later, she confided to a friend, "There's something off about him. I can't explain it, but I don't think I want to go on that date." Her instincts would prove to be a lifesaver. Flashback to 1965, 13 years before Rodney's television appearance. In North Hollywood, a shy 13-year-old girl named Morgan Rowan had just moved with her family. The golden California sun bathed everything in a warm glow, and Morgan was eager to embrace the vibrant culture of her new home. One evening, she and her friend decided to visit the Hullabaloo Club, a famous hotspot known for live music and celebrity sightings. The air was electric with anticipation as they waited outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of their favourite bands. Amid the crowd, 2 older men caught their attention. One of them was tall, with an easy smile and an air of confidence that seemed to draw people in effortlessly. "Hey, that's Rod," Morgan's friend whispered, nodding toward him. Rod noticed the girls looking and sauntered over. "You ladies enjoying the night?" he asked. His eyes twinkling with a playful spark, Morgan felt a flutter of excitement. Rod's charm was intoxicating, and his attention made her feel special in a way she hadn't before. They chatted casually, laughter flowing easily as he regaled them with stories. He seemed so genuine, so friendly. How could she have known the darkness that lay beneath? As the night wore on, Morgan's friend had to leave unexpectedly, leaving her alone with Rod and his companion. Morgan didn't mind. She was enjoying the conversation and felt a thrilling sense of maturity being noticed by an older guy. But suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Rod's grip on her arm tightened, his friendly demeanour evaporating. "Come with me," he said, his voice low and insistent. Confused, Morgan tried to pull away. "I should probably get back." Before she could finish, Rod yanked her toward a dimly lit alley behind the club. Panic surged through her veins. "What are you doing? Let me go," she cried, her voice barely audible over the distant thump of music. Rod's eyes were cold, devoid of the warmth they held earlier. He pushed her against the rough brick wall, his face inches from hers. "You're not going anywhere," he hissed. Morgan's heart pounded in her chest. She opened her mouth to scream, but a sharp pain exploded in her head, and the world went black. When she awoke, she was slumped against the wall, a heavy dumpster pressed against her chest, pinning her in place. Her head throbbed, and she tasted blood on her lips. Disoriented and terrified, she struggled to push the dumpster away. Every movement sent waves of pain through her body, but adrenaline fueled her desperation. Finally freeing herself, she stumbled back toward the club, tears streaming down her face. The owner and his wife saw her and rushed to help, their expressions a mix of shock and concern. "What happened?" they asked, guiding her inside, but Morgan couldn't find the words. Shame and fear silenced her, and she decided then and there not to tell anyone about the attack. She wanted to pretend it never happened, to erase the nightmare from her memory. Three years later, Morgan had done her best to move on. She avoided the Hullabaloo Club and any places where she might run into Rod. The scars from that night remained hidden, both physically and emotionally. In August of 1968, just 4 days before her family was to move back to New York, her friends convinced her to spend one last night out on the Sunset Strip. The streets were alive with music, laughter, and the carefree spirit of the era. For the first time in a long while, Morgan felt a sense of joy. Surrounded by friends, she allowed herself to relax. But then, amidst the swirling crowd, she saw him. Rod stood there, his eyes locking onto hers the moment she spotted him. A sinister smile curled his lips. Her blood ran cold. "This can't be happening," she thought, panic rising within her. She tried to avoid his gaze, to blend into the crowd, but it was too late. Rod approached, his demeanour friendly, yet somehow threatening. "Fancy seeing you here," he said smoothly. Morgan forced a weak smile. Yeah, small world. Her friends, oblivious to her discomfort, accepted Rod's offer to drive them to a nearby diner. Trapped by circumstance and her own silence, Morgan went along, hoping to get through the night without incident. After dinner, Rod suggested going to a party at his place. Her friends eagerly agreed, but dread gnawed at Morgan's stomach. At the party, loud music and chatter filled the space, but Morgan felt isolated. She couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. "Hey, relax!" her friend Mike shouted over the music. "It's our last hurrah!" She nodded absently, scanning the room for Rod. Suddenly, he appeared beside her. "We need to talk," he said, his grip firm on her arm. Before she could protest, he led her down a hallway and shoved her into a bedroom. The door slammed shut behind them, and she heard the chilling sound of a metal bar dropping into place, locking them in. "Rod, stop this," she pleaded, backing away. His eyes were devoid of empathy. "You didn't think you'd get away from me that easily, did you?" Fear paralysed her as he advanced. He struck her hard, the force knocking her to the floor. Pain blurred her vision as he brandished a knife, cutting away at her clothing. She fought back with every ounce of strength, but he overpowered her. The assault was brutal, stripping away not just her physical security, but a piece of her soul. Outside, her friends began to wonder where she was. Mike noticed she was missing and started searching the house. Finding the locked door, he banged on it, shouting her name. The commotion startled Rod. Enraged, he lashed out at Morgan one last time before unlocking the door. "Take her," he sneered as the door swung open. Morgan's friends rushed in, horrified at the scene. They gathered her up and fled the house, leaving Rod behind. Once again, Morgan chose not to report the incident. The weight of shame and the fear of burdening her family kept her silent. Back in New York, Morgan became a shadow of her former self. Her parents noticed the change, but attributed it to typical teenage angst and the sadness of leaving friends behind. "How are you settling in?" her mother asked one evening. "Fine," Morgan replied curtly, retreating to her room. Inside, she battled nightmares and a crushing sense of guilt. She hadn't told anyone about Rod, and now she carried the burden alone. One day, she received a letter from a friend in California. As she opened it, a newspaper clipping fell out. The headline sent a chill down her spine. "Local girl attacked. Suspect at large." The article described how an 8-year-old girl had been assaulted by a man named Rodney Alcala. Morgan's heart pounded. "It's him," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Overwhelmed with guilt, she thought, "If only I'd spoken up. If only I'd reported him, this little girl wouldn't have suffered." Determined to find out more, Morgan spent hours at the library, scouring newspapers on microfilm for any information. But details were scarce, and her quest for answers only deepened her despair. The 8-year-old girl in the article was Tali Shapiro. It was a sunny morning in 1968 when Tali was walking to school. A car pulled up beside her, and the driver leaned over. "Do you need a ride?" he asked kindly. Tali hesitated. "My parents told me not to talk to strangers." He smiled warmly. "I'm not a stranger. I know your parents." Trusting his friendly demeanour, Tali accepted the ride. But instead of taking her to school, Rodney Alcala drove to his apartment. Unbeknownst to them, a good Samaritan named Donald Haynes had witnessed the exchange and felt something was amiss. He followed them and, after seeing Tali enter the apartment with Alcala, called the police. Officer Chris Camacho responded quickly. When he knocked on Alcala's door, Rodney tried to stall. "I just got out of the shower," he claimed. Officer Camacho wasn't fooled. Hearing faint sounds from inside, he kicked the door down. What he found was horrifying. Tali lay on the floor, unconscious and severely injured. Alcala had fled through a back exit. Thanks to the quick actions of both Donald Haynes and Officer Camacho, Tali's life was saved. But the trauma of that day would linger for decades. With the authorities closing in, Alcala vanished. He resurfaced in New York, adopting the alias John Berger. Under this new identity, he enrolled at New York University, studying film under the acclaimed director Roman Polanski. His charm and intellect allowed him to blend seamlessly into his new surroundings. He even secured a job as a counselor at an all-girls summer camp in New Hampshire, placing him in close proximity to potential victims. But fate intervened when 2 campers recognized him from an FBI Most Wanted poster at the local post office. Shocked, they alerted the camp director, leading to Alcala's arrest. Detective Steve Hodel was tasked with bringing him back to California. We finally got him, he thought, believing justice would prevail. Despite the severity of his crimes, the justice system faltered. Tali's family, wanting to protect her from further trauma, refused to let her testify in court. Without her testimony, the prosecution's case weakened significantly. Alcala was able to plead guilty to a lesser charge of child molestation. Astonishingly, he received a sentence of just 1 year to life. After serving only 34 months, Alcala was released on parole. The decision baffled and outraged many, but the system deemed him rehabilitated. Unbeknownst to the public, a predator had been set free, and the consequences would be devastating. In the summer of 1979, 12-year-old Robin Samsoe was a vibrant girl with a bright smile. On June 20th, she and her friend Bridget were enjoying a day at Huntington Beach, practicing cartwheels and soaking up the sun. A man approached them, camera in hand. "I'm a professional photographer," he said. "Would you like me to take your picture?" The girls felt uneasy. Before they could decline, a neighbour noticed the interaction and intervened. The man, startled, quickly left. Later, Robin borrowed Bridget's bike to get to her ballet class, but never arrived. Panic set in as her family and friends realised she was missing. Days later, her body was discovered in a remote area. The community was shaken to its core. Witnesses helped create a composite sketch of the suspect. Detective Brian Jenkins received a tip that pointed to Rodney Alcala. That evening, while reviewing the case, Jenkins turned on the television. To his astonishment, he saw Alcala on a rerun of The Dating Game, charming the audience as if he hadn't a care in the world. "Unbelievable," Jenkins muttered. The realization that Robin's suspected killer had appeared on national television during his spree was chilling. The audacity of Alcala's appearance on The Dating Game was a stark testament to his arrogance. He had managed to hide his monstrous nature behind a veneer of charm and wit, fooling not just the audience, but nearly everyone around him. Cheryl Bradshaw, the bachelorette who had chosen him, later recounted how unsettling he was off-camera. "He was creepy," she said. "Something about him didn't feel right." Her decision to decline the date may have saved her life. Detective Jenkins used the footage to confirm Alcala's identity. With mounting evidence, authorities moved swiftly to apprehend him. A search of Alcala's mother's house yielded little, but a receipt led investigators to a storage locker in Seattle. What they found was a trove of darkness. Thousands of photographs of young women and boys, many in explicit poses. Personal items, including earrings and other jewellery, were also discovered. Among them, a pair of gold ball earrings caught their attention. Robin Samsoe's mother identified them as belonging to her daughter. The evidence was overwhelming. Alcala had not only murdered Robin, but potentially many others whose identities remained unknown. In 1980, Alcala was tried, convicted, and sentenced to death for the murder of Robin Samsoe. Her family felt a measure of justice, believing the nightmare was finally over. But legal complications arose. In 1984, the conviction was overturned due to improper handling of evidence and jury instructions. A second trial in 1986 resulted in the same verdict and sentence, but again, it was overturned in 2001 on a technicality. Each reversal was a blow to the victims' families, forcing them to relive their trauma. "How many times do we have to go through this?" Robin's mother cried. "It's like losing her all over again." Determined to secure a definitive conviction, prosecutors built a stronger case for the third trial in 2010. This time, Tali Shapiro agreed to testify. Facing the man who had nearly killed her decades earlier, Tali stood strong. "I won't let him have any more power over me," she declared. Her testimony was gripping, providing the jury with a first-hand account of Alcala's brutality. In the audience, Morgan watched with tears in her eyes. Inspired by Tali's courage, she reached out to her, sharing her own story and long-held guilt. "I felt responsible for what happened to you," Morgan confessed. Tali embraced her. "You're not to blame," she assured. "He is the one responsible." Their connection brought healing to both women, turning pain into solidarity. In March 2010, after years of legal battles, Rodney Alcala was found guilty of 5 counts of first-degree murder, including that of Robin Samsoe. He was sentenced to death. This time, there would be no appeals. For the families of the victims, it was a bittersweet victory. While justice had been served, nothing could bring back their loved ones. Authorities released over 100 photos from Alcala's storage locker to the public, hoping to identify other potential victims. In 2015, Kathy Thornton recognised her sister Christine among the images. After 39 years of uncertainty, she finally had answers. Alcala's death in prison in 2021 closed a dark chapter, but his case continues to resonate. It serves as a haunting reminder of the evil that can hide behind a friendly smile. For survivors like Morgan and Tali, healing is an ongoing journey. They've channeled their experiences into advocacy, raising awareness about the dangers that can lurk beneath the surface. "I feel like Robin's life meant something," her sister reflected. "Even in her 12 short years, she stopped him from killing anyone else." The story of Rodney Alcala is a chilling testament to the duality that can exist within a person. The facade of charm masking a heart of darkness. It's a stark reminder of the importance of trusting our instincts and the profound impact that speaking up can have. But amidst the horror, there is also a story of resilience. The courage of survivors like Morgan and Tali, the dedication of investigators, and the unwavering love of families all highlight the strength of the human spirit. By sharing their stories, they honour the memories of those lost and offer hope to others who may be suffering in silence. Thank you for joining us on this journey into a shadowed past. May we carry forward the lessons learned, staying vigilant and compassionate, and always remembering that sometimes the most ordinary faces can hide the most extraordinary secrets. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and take care of one another.